So today I'm going to be showing you guys a pretty specific list. We got 5 cars in my opinion that are really cool and unique and awesome, but they're also forgotten from the 90s decade. Now, we're also just going to be looking at domestic cars, which is going to narrow this list down even more. Also, I'm not including trucks, so like the GMC Cyclone and Ford Lightning. I feel like they're always thrown in these lists when people talk about the 90s. But today we're mainly going to be looking at cars. Actually, one of the vehicles on the list is an SUV. So I guess I kind of like lied with that pick right there. But before we get into it today, definitely be sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Most of you guys that watch the channel are not subscribed to me, and it would really help me out a ton if you were to subscribe. And also, if you've already been subscribed, click that little bell icon down there. As a small car channel that posts new content daily, I really do appreciate all the support. But anyways, without wasting any time and getting right into number 5, we got the Ford Taurus SHO. Now, yes, you heard me right. I just said a Ford Taurus. Now, the SHO, which unironically stands for Super High Output, which is a very uncreative name, came from Ford, and it's actually the only vehicle on this list to feature 3 different generations throughout the decade of the 1990s. It was made from 89 to 99, and then Ford just stopped making the 4th generation of the Taurus SHO, and that went from like 2010 up until 2019. But obviously for today's video, we're just going to be looking at those first 3 generations, and it's honestly like not a bad little car. It was essentially came with a variety of Yamaha V6s, the highest output one making 235 horsepower, which is kind of a trend that you're going to see with today's video. None of these vehicles are especially like impressive when it comes to today's standards. There's plenty of just modern day boring cars that are much better performing vehicles than these ones, but they're cool and they're unique, and that's something that this Taurus SHO really is. I mean, it's a Taurus. Again, I don't know how many times I have to reiterate it, but yeah, it's just freaking hilarious that Ford decided to actually make a high output Taurus. Although that 235 horsepower might not seem like a lot, considering that it's just over 3,000 pounds, actually never mind. That 235 horsepower is still not a lot. But I'm sure it offered the driver a unique driving experience with it being front wheel drive. So those over 200 horses from its V6 is going right to the front wheels. So I'm sure it offered the driver like a very like Honda Civic-esque experience with plenty of oversteer, a lot of torque steer, and a decent amount of, front wheel spin. Now moving on to number 4, we have potentially the most unique car on this list, and that is the Pontiac Turbo Grand Prix by ASC McLaren. Now, yes, technically, I guess you could say this car is a McLaren. It's also dubbed like the slowest, cheapest, and just flat out weirdest McLaren to ever be made, but ASC was actually used to be an engineering like branch of McLaren that obviously does not exist anymore, and they made this car in conjunction with Pontiac in the early 90s, and it was powered by a 3.1 liter V6 GM engine that made 140 horsepower or up to 205 horsepower, the 140 obviously being the base output and then the 205 being the highest output out there. It delivered that power through a 4-speed automatic transmission, and it was just simply made from the years of 89 to 91. So it really wasn't made that long. Not a lot of them are out there. Actually, a gentleman, I forgot his name, but he did like a full video on it. I'll just edit in like the thumbnail right now. And it was really interesting, like going through his video when I was doing research for this list. It's a wild car, like it really is, and it's pretty insane that something like that could actually exist in a production fashion and not like just some make-believe Hot Wheels car or anything. Like it almost like seems like a fever dream. It's a very weird car. And now moving right along, at number 3 we have the Dodge Daytona IROC RT. Now, I know what you're thinking. IROC? What do you mean? Like, isn't IROC like a Chevy thing? No, IROC actually stands for International Race of Champions, and actually the year that Chevy's, I guess, contract or, they got out of that, Dodge basically stepped in their place, and one of their cars that they made was this Daytona IROC. Now this car was another like sporty front wheel drive coupe, except this one had a turbocharged 2.2 liter 4-cylinder engine, which made 224 horsepower, and it also had a 5-speed manual transmission. Its suspension was also technically tuned for racing, or I guess as tuned as you could get back then, and its 0 to 60 time was just under 7 seconds, which honestly was surprisingly quick back then. Again, a lot of these performance numbers that I'm going to rattle off in this video, you're going to look at, and being in 2022, you're probably going to think that, you know, that thing's a slow piece of turd, which you might be right. However, back then in the early 90s, for a factory car to do that, it was pretty respectable. And now moving up to number 2 on the list, we have the SUV of the list. We have the 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.9 Limited. Now, to be quite honest with you, I don't know the more appropriate title of this Cherokee 5.9. You could say that it was the father to the Trackhawk, the predecessor, the grandfather to the Trackhawk, or it was its, you know, drunk uncle at the barbecue. But it's a very, very unique SUV coming out of the late 90s. Very unsuspecting looking, looked like a regular old Grand Cherokee. There wasn't really any aesthetic differences on the outside of it, except underneath it had a 5.9 liter, as its name suggests, a V8 underneath the hood, making 245 horsepower at 4,000 RPMs, averaging just 13 miles per gallon during steady driving, and a whopping 19 miles per gallon during highway driving. It also had a decent amount of towing capacity. It could tow up to 5,000 pounds. Again, it was still that 4-wheel drive, had that front diff, had a 4-speed automatic trans, and it had a 0 to 60 time of 6.8 seconds, which again, like we just said with the Daytona IROC RT, if you're getting sub 7 seconds in a factory vehicle back then, it was kind of respectable. And the fact that Jeep was doing it with an SUV that weighed, I think, around 4,300 pounds, that was pretty damn cool back in the day. It did also have a stock quarter-mile time of 15.2 seconds, so you could have fun with this thing mudding on trails or at the drag strip, or just hunting down unsuspecting Mustangs and Camaros out on the public road. Now, if you made it this far, coming in at number 1, we have the Chevy Impala Super Sport. Now, this Chevy Impala Super Sport, or Chevy Impala SS, was made from 94 to 96. It had a 5.7 liter or 350 cubic inch V8 underneath the hood, making 260 horsepower, had a 0 to 60 time of 7 seconds flat, a quarter-mile time of 15.3 seconds, and a top speed of 142 miles per hour. And when you look at it, it just does not look like it could do any of that, which made for the perfect sleeper of the 90s, besides, I guess, your, you know, turboed Fox body Mustang. Now, I know I just mentioned the 350 underneath the hood, but it also had a 383 Callaway Supernatural SS, which was like the kind of top of the line, or like special edition. That punched out 404 horsepower, had a quicker 0 to 60 time at 5.9 seconds, and a quarter-mile time of 14 seconds flat. So it's safe to say that this Chevy Impala SS was by far the coolest B-body ever made, at least in my opinion. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys think that another B-body of that time was cooler than this one. And considering that it's the classic, you know, a formula for American muscle with a front engine V8 rear wheel drive with a limited slip differential in the back, although it weighed around 4,200 pounds, which definitely made it a pretty hefty land yacht, it still was probably a lot of fun to drive, a lot of fun to hoon around in, and probably a blast to just tear up tires in. Now, that is pretty much just gonna be it for today's video. Let me know if I missed any other like cool, like sleeper-esque cars from the 90s. Again, I just was talking about like domestic cars in this video. Let me know if you guys want to see me do like a European cars of the 90s or Japanese cars of the 90s. And also let me know if you guys want to see me do different decades, and like I can make this into a whole series. But that's pretty much just gonna be it. Again, if you haven't already, definitely be sure to leave a like, subscribe, click that bell icon if you're already subscribed. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much for sticking until the end of today's video. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed today's video, click on either of these links right here to watch a similar video from this channel, or click on the little circle link right there to actually subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. I do appreciate all the support, but thank you for sticking to the end of this video, and I hope you have a fantastic day.